Assalamu alaikum. I hope you are doing well. Ramadan Mubarak. And today I'm going to go over a problem child that we have in our portfolio named Bitdeer and tell you the good and the bad and be, inshallah, completely transparent with you regarding my thoughts on this stock that has been going through a lot of trouble recently. We'll break down why. Before that, we're going to review where we are in terms of some of the major asset prices and indices. So the VIX is at 19, which is relatively elevated compared to where we have been earlier in the year. That being said, it's nowhere near where we were in April of last year, for example, when we had the tariff scare, which turned out everything is going to be, well, if the court has their way, everything is going to be refunded. And Howard Lutnick is going to make a lot of money on that because, well, at least his sons are, because they bought the rights to the refunds for 20 cents on the dollar. So that's a nice 5x that they got in the last 12 months. Wonder if there was any insider information there. With regards to where we are, the Dow, as Pam Bondi likes to say, the Dow is close to 50,000. It's actually lower than 50,000 right now, so maybe they can prosecute some of Epstein's clients. The S&P is still close to its high at 6,900, and the Nasdaq is at 25,000. If you look at Tesla, it's been holding up pretty nicely above 400. Bitdeer is down today. Bitdeer, the problem child that we're going to talk about, some pretty dramatic, wild moves. That share has been undergoing. So if you're not for volatility, probably not the right share for you. Enphase continues to go up, even though I don't want it to, because I would like it to come back into Sharia compliance so that I could buy it because it's a good company, which I think will do well over the next 12 to 24 months. CoreWeave took it on the chin today, down 8%, as a lot of banks are looking at CoreWeave and saying, hey, you guys don't actually own anything. Why are we going to finance you? We need access to power, and you guys don't have access to power. This theme will be revisited in this live. And TSM, one of the amazing picks in our dividend portfolio, has been doing extremely well, continues to do extremely well. BTC is at 68,000. We'll talk about when the pain will possibly end for Bitcoin. Solana is at 84. And, well, you don't even want to know where Dogecoin and Pudgy Penguins are at. Needless to say, they are far removed from their highs. That being said, the path of 1,000 miles starts with one step, and Pengu is up 4%. So perhaps we're taking that one step. All right. So let's talk about. Assalamu alaikum, by the way, to everyone in the chat. I missed you guys. I hope you've been doing well. Ramadan Mubarak. And I hope you take advantage of this time to grow closer to your creator and make dua for us. That would be very much appreciated. So when will the pain stop? So we've had a rough 3 months with Bitdeer. So we were at close to $22 on November 7th. And right now we're at $7.78. Needless to say, ouch, that hurt. Initially, we got earnings and a fire in two of their buildings in their Ohio location. And by the way, it held up pretty nicely even after crypto capitulated in October. But then it finally capitulated in the start of November. And then we had a bit of a rebound from the lows of around 10, 11 to 15 mid-January. And then again, we've been cut in half since then. So it's been a pretty painful hold. As I mentioned, near-term headwinds. We had the crypto sentiment falling off a cliff after the liquidation event in October, which, as far as anyone can tell, was due to uh, a, uh, a Binance stablecoin getting unpegged and having cascading liquidations, which was followed by, I think, um, the narrative that the 4-year cycle was over, and so no one wanted to jump back in. And then we had, to start the year, the talk about Greenland, and now we have the talk about Iran and perhaps a war with Iran. Um, Obviously, it has nothing to do with the interest of the United States, but we're being pushed into a war with Iran. And even though we're $40 trillion in debt and we can barely afford the interest on that debt. And in fact, we can't afford it considering where the debt is increasing with time and our interest obligations. But we're still thinking about unnecessary wars, unfortunately. Uh, as I mentioned, with regards to crypto sentiment, it's remained sort of risk off in terms of uh, crypto, and generally the space has been avoided by investors, I think, in large part because of all of this ambiguity, geopolitical ambiguity, sentiment related to just the cyclicality of crypto. And, we've been here before, so this must be, the bear market. So that has impacted Bitdeer, who is primarily still a Bitcoin miner. It also had fire in 2 buildings in their Ohio locations. And to make matters worse, there was a litigation announced in January regarding one of its sites, and that it wanted to make into an AI HPC site, and perhaps these plans for the site would infringe on the access that neighbors have to power and access to infrastructure. And so that litigation was not good news for Bitdeer and Bitdeer investors. And then they had the recent convertible notes offering where they raised more money, which means more dilution for investors. And we'll talk about that in a second. So on the bright side here, Bitdeer has increased the number of Bitcoin that it mines from around 30 just last year, 12 months ago, to around 183. So they 5x the number of Bitcoin that they produce. And I truly believe that if the Bitcoin cycle had not been interrupted, then and we were, north of 100,000, this could be a $30 stock, considering the Bitcoin output that they're producing. Not only because of the revenue and cash flow that they would be producing at that point, but also because they would not need the additional diluting rounds that they have needed in the past 3 months. And so the price of the stock would not have suffered as much. That being said, it's important for us not to look in the rearview mirror. It's important to always look ahead and try and ask ourselves, what is the next best move here? And so, if you look at the fear and greed index for crypto, we've had an extended dip into this extreme fear period. And typically, if you look at previous periods, I mean, the extreme fear has been followed by um, local bottoms, essentially, for whether you go back a few months or you go back all the way to the April scare in 2025 regarding the tariffs, or you go even further back. We haven't had levels of fear like we have right now, and that is reflecting itself on the prices of crypto, as you can see. But eventually, this fear does subside, and the um, the sentiment does tend to improve, and with it, price does improve as well. If you look at the Bitcoin realized price, this is probably a more sort of concrete measure to go by when trying to figure out where the bottom possibly could be. Um, the Bitcoin realized price is 54,000. So this is the sort of average price that holders of Bitcoin bought Bitcoin for. And so uh, typically this ends up being a bottom for Bitcoin. Bitcoin can dip below it briefly, but it never dips too much below it. And typically the dips below it are not really long lived. Um, but there's we don't necessarily have to reach the realized price. It's possible to bottom out before then. That being said, if you want to um, sort of know the high probability number for a bottom, I think it would be around 55,000, between 55 and 60 is probably my guess if I had to guess for the bottom for Bitcoin. Now, if you look at similar streaks that have happened in the past. For example, in 2022, Bitcoin was down for 9 straight weeks. That was basically the record. In 2026, it's down for 5 weeks. The fear index now is, it's close to zero. I mean, crypto is completely off the radars of investors. But after 2022, the Bitcoin went on a 715% run. And so in 2022, the price of Bitcoin fell from around 45,000 to around 15,000. And right now, we haven't had as dramatic a drop, going from north of 120 to 67 right now for a Bitcoin. But we've had 5 weeks in a row of downturn for Bitcoin. And if you look at what happened after the 9 weeks that Bitcoin had downturn in 2022, the next 3 months it was up 30%, the next 12 months it was up 180%, and the next 24 months it was up 715%. It went from 15,000 all the way to 125,000. So a bit of hopium for you. And my final piece of hopium is the relationship between Bitcoin and gold. And this kind of speaks to the position I mentioned in the previous live, the live I did before this one, which was the possibility that we may actually not be entering a bear market. We may actually be exiting a bear market. As hard to believe as that may be, the reason I say this is because if you look at all the correlations, they don't really make sense between Bitcoin and anything else for a bull market. You have the manufacturing index, the money supply. You have the rates going down. You have the business cycle being what it is, pointing towards Bitcoin should be in strength, and yet you have the case of going from 125,000 to half of that. Now, if you look at the relationship of Bitcoin to gold, typically the price of Bitcoin will bottom 14 months following a peak in the price of Bitcoin in relation to gold. So when the strength of Bitcoin peaks in relation to gold, so if you look at these white circles here, when the strength of Bitcoin peaks in relation to gold, typically you have 14 months, and then you have a bottom in the relative strength index of Bitcoin. And so right now we have we're looking at an RSI for Bitcoin that is sort of unprecedented. And it comes exactly 14 months after the peak of the Bitcoin to gold ratio, which happened in December of 2024. And so it is very possible that the RSI for Bitcoin may be bottoming out here. And that really what we perceived as perhaps a bull market for Bitcoin in 2025, which was coinciding with quantitative tightening, which never happens. Um, and that quantitative tightening ended in December. It's perhaps the case that a lot of what was pushing Bitcoin higher were the, the ETFs that Bitcoin now has that it didn't have in previous cycles, the friendly Bitcoin administration, and just general crypto friendly administration, and the uh, many Bitcoin treasury companies that were stockpiling Bitcoin. So it may be that secular trends rather than cyclical trends were behind the strength that Bitcoin may have exhibited um, since December 2024. But in reality, it was a bear market, and perhaps the cyclical trends will add to the secular trends, and we could have some surprising strength in Bitcoin in 2026. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily what's going to happen. I'm just saying this is a possibility and perhaps something that is not on many people's radar. It does seem like pessimism is quite high these days among investors, and I do try to challenge myself in thinking um, different from what the average investor is thinking, because that's typically where you find the most alpha. Now, going back to Bitdeer and approaching 200 BTC a week, and this is a company that has the goal of reaching 100 exahash this year, and it's already reached 60 exahash. So, perhaps they're able to even increase this number to by the end of this year to 300 or 400, depending on the network difficulty at the time. 400 Bitcoin a week would be something unheard of. Now, if the price of Bitcoin goes up, obviously reaching a number like that would be much more difficult because the network difficulty would increase. But it certainly does seem like they've cracked the code on increasing their BTC output in the last 12 months, and so really, I mean, this is a highly leveraged play on BTC. Every $1,000 BTC goes up, this company makes at its current output. If you consider that they're producing around 600 a month, every $1,000 the price of BTC goes up, the the revenue generated goes up by 600,000, and so and that's per month. And so if the price of Bitcoin reclaims 100 or goes to 120 or higher than that, then that would certainly be a windfall for this company. Now, there are other sort of irons in the fire that this company has. So it's no secret that there's a power capacity shortfall, and this shortfall is increasing. So if you take, for example, the PGM area, which is sort of Pennsylvania, Ohio area, which sort of the battleground for data centers and AI right now. If you look at the deficit that they are projecting, and this according to Bloomberg, so you see this light blue box. That's the deficit, actually. That's the shortfall in the power capacity versus the projected demand. And so you can see between 2025 and 2030, despite all the efforts from gas, coal, nuclear, solar, wind, oil, despite all the efforts to increase the power capacity, there's still a shortfall, and that shortfall is increasing with time. Now, enter Bitdeer. Bitdeer has been, in addition to increasing their hash rate and increasing the number of Bitcoin that they mine, they have doubled their operational electrical capacity in the last 12 months as well. So they went from around 900 megawatts of total electric capacity in January of 2024 to now 1,600 megawatts. That's as of December of 2025. So they've almost doubled their electrical capacity, and there's a lot of demand for this, and it's a finite, scarce resource that is gaining value as the shortfall between demand and supply grows, which is, as I mentioned, what is forecasted. They're also taking AI, let's call them baby steps, but they, for example, this is just an anecdote. For example, they have now on their AI cloud the ability to host NVIDIA GB200s, which they're offering clients the ability to deploy now. And this is significant. They are, I'm not sure, we'll have to see more sort of traction, but they are forecasting 300 to 400 million in AI revenue in 2026. We'll see how this pans out, but it does seem like they're taking steps in this direction. So potential catalysts here, I would feel comfortable with saying, okay, they don't need additional funding in order to um, fund all of their expansion projects. If Bitcoin is to reach 100 to 120,000, and that's when I put the numbers and calculated. That's the level where I think funding is no longer needed for this company and can kind of operate without having to get external funding, which is what really hit its stock price in the last 3 months. 2 rounds of external funding that it needed to do. Also, some potential catalyst is, and this is something we haven't talked about. We talked about power and their Bitcoin mining, is the mass production and getting external customers for the Seal 4 chip. So, with regards to this, I mean, if they are able to prove that beyond just using their rigs for internal Bitcoin mining, which has proven its efficacy, but if they are able to manufacture at scale these rigs and sell them for what I expect gross margins of 30 to 40% to external customers, then that adds another lifeline for the company. And they did mention that they thought that this could happen in the first half of this year. So that is another potential catalyst. A third potential catalyst is the fact that the litigation around their Clarington, Ohio site is resolved. And when you look into this, so around 70 to 80% of litigation disputes resolve via settlement or dismissal before trial, while full injunctions leading to project halts occur in roughly 20 to 30% of these types of cases. And this is per historical data from sources like the American Bar Association and Core Analytics. So I think if they're able to resolve the litigation, even if it comes at a cost, but they're able to resolve the litigation and they're able to sign a deal with a hyperscaler for their Clarington, Ohio location, which is a prime location. They have a 30-year lease on, and more than 500 megawatts of power there. If they're able to sign a deal with a hyperscaler, that would re-rate the stock completely. And then also they boast a pretty diversified geographical footprint with regards to their their power capacity. So they have locations in Norway and Malaysia. And so if we see expansion of their AI experiment globally and perhaps doing some co-location deals, expanding their revenue from AI to that 300, $400 million mark would add additional buffer in addition to the 100 to 120,000 Bitcoin price that would be I think that this number would be sufficient for the Bitcoin mining business to fund the entire operation. But if some of these other things happen and AI takes off and starts contributing meaningfully to this company, along with the margins that come with AI, the very healthy margins, then a lesser number would suffice for the company. But for the Bitcoin mining business alone to fund the different projects, the different irons in the fire that the company has currently, I think this is the price that they'll need. Now, there are some, positive signals. So the CEO, who um, is very polarizing, has actually 20% ownership in the company, and he hasn't sold anything. I mean, he's holding on, and that's a good sign. So whenever you know that there's high insider ownership and a dilution event happens, then you can pretty much be sure that the dilution is happening for good reason, because you know Jihan Wu saw the current value of his shares, fall just as much in terms of percentage, just as much as any other investor did. And so, in a sense, if you want to kind of look on the bright side, the silver lining for these raises, they would not be raising this money unless there was a compelling opportunity to deploy that money into right now. And so that's encouraging. And then when you see Tether, who is no stranger to generating a lot of cash, has a 13% stake in the company. This is also encouraging. And by the way, if you look at Tether's buy prices, the prices that they bought, now the lowest level that they bought shares in Bitdeer is basically the price that it's trading at today. So that is my full analysis of Bitdeer, where it is right now. I think I was, as transparent as possible. I think that yes, it's going through a tough time. There was sort of a series of unfortunate events, but I do think that if you look previously, we've been at market capitalizations similar to and lower than the ones we are right now, than where we are right now. And we shot up to 3-4x where we are right now. And so we've been here before, but right now we have, twice the power capacity, operational power capacity that we had last year. We have 5 or 6 times the hash rate that we had last year. We have a sort of top of the line in terms of efficiency seal miner that may go into mass production soon, and perhaps we'll get some external customers for those seal miners. So we have, I think, a lot more shots on goal than we had in previous times when we were at similar market cap. So I think that putting everything in perspective, I think that there's risk here for sure, but it's also high reward if it works out. And I do think that with regards to Bitcoin, which is the most important near-term determinant of the price of Bitdeer shares, I think we're way closer to the bottom than we are to the top. As I said, I think the bottom probably around the realized price, which is 55,000. We're maybe 10,000 removed from there. We've fallen all the way from 125,000. So we've covered a lot more ground than I think what is left. And from there, I think that, just as we had a pretty dramatic drop in these 3 months, it's possible that we have a a pretty healthy bounce as well. Typically, when things take a long time to fall, they take a long time to go up. And if something falls very quickly and it's going to bounce, it bounces back very quickly as well. So, just wanted to leave you guys with that, and hopefully, I've added clarity that adds comfort to the lives of whoever is holding this stock. So, with that, let's go to questions. Uh, so I joined PIF at the end of last year, waiting to buy Tesla from then. Could you please talk about it in live so I can listen in the. So I heard some very encouraging things regarding Tesla, with regards to, and perhaps we'll cover it in a different live, but with regards to the growth of their robotaxi experiment, with regards to their robo cab, and now their the manufacturing methodology where they can kind of print out um, the robocab in a very efficient manner, and perhaps it gets sold for what they're saying is perhaps 30,000 by the end of this year. Um, and then so the robotaxi experiment, the robocab, they also have other things going with the Tesla Semi and the Tesla Cybercab, their newest edition, their 60K edition. That's even better than the 70K edition. So they have a lot of great things going on for it. So I would say definitely, if you don't already have a full position, and this is not financial advice, but to DCA, to start DCAing into Tesla. I don't know what it's going to do in the next month, 2 or 3, but I think, 12 months from now, 24 months from now, you'll be very happy that you did. Uh, what is your thought on Cardano? Perhaps you're asking about Cardano, and I'm not a fan at all. Assalamu alaikum, alaikum salam, guys. I really love the PIF project. Um, Inshallah, I think that they, well, I don't think your categorization is fair at all. I think it's misleading, to be honest. If you were following our portfolios, we averaged 30% return. So I don't think your characterization is accurate at all. One more question. You can't just look at the last 3-4 months and and make a characterization based on that. One more question. Any thoughts on Vital Farms? I like Vital Farms. I think it's. I'll be listening very closely to their earnings, but I think it's undervalued where it is right now, for sure. But you're heading into 2026. Do you think consensus is underestimating the impact of its AI HPC transition, or are the risks around execution and funding still the dominant narrative? I think the risks really. I think a lot has been said about the execution of Bitdeer, but when I look at their power capacity and I look at the progress they've made on their mining chips, and I look at the hash rate growth, I think their execution has been good. I mean, I'm going to try and be fair here, but I don't think that. So in terms of execution risk, that's not my main concern. My main concern is funding risks, and a lot of that is going to depend on things that, um, for example, the litigation regarding their Clarington, Ohio. Uh, Location. That is something that I think if we get a resolution there, we can start thinking about, signing deals with co-location partners, and really generating some serious revenue from there. Um, and that would solve a lot of funding issues, similar to how Iron did. Um, and so, um, funding issues persist for sure, but I think that, to be fair to management, I think their execution has been decent. I wouldn't describe it as harshly as a lot of people on, X perhaps have. Salam, brother. Thanks for the live. It's my pleasure. It seems Bitdeer has negative operating cash flow while CapEx remains aggressive. Do you think this is a strategic front-loaded investment or structural cash burn? So, as I mentioned, with regards to CapEx, the question is, okay, let's break this down into two things. So, with regards to their operational cash flow, in terms of Bitcoin, if you think about it as an asset, and you say, okay, um, um, in order for this asset to survive, mining has to happen, and mining has to happen at a operational cash flow that is positive, right? If you just think about that without knowing anything about financials, uh, the miners have to make money in order for Bitcoin to be alive. If miners are not making money, the least efficient miners are going to die first, right? And they'll continue to die until the last miner dies, right? And so if you're looking at something like Bitdeer that has vertical integration and it's making its own Bitcoin mining rigs, and so it's keeping the margin for those Bitcoin mining rigs to itself, it has the most profitable mining operation out there. Uh, when you take into account it keeping for itself the margins of the Bitcoin mining rigs. So in order to argue that there's a structural issue with the business of mining Bitcoin, you have to argue that Bitdeer is less efficient than other miners in terms of mining Bitcoin, and I don't think that is true. I think it's near the top right now because their joules per terahash are not number one yet, but they've moved considerably down, which means they're more efficient. And perhaps they'll be the most efficient if their seal miners meet their targets in terms of efficiency. Uh, and as I mentioned, they're making the mining rigs themselves, so they're keeping the margin from that. So if you believe in Bitcoin, you have to think that the most efficient Bitcoin miner has an operational cash flow that's positive. So that's one. As it relates to CapEx, as I mentioned with regards to raising money, um, it is a sign when they are raising money and the share price is where it is right now. It is a sign that there's a compelling opportunity that they see to invest the money that they are raising and get more cash in the future than what they are investing. So I think that, especially when you consider the amount of insider ownership that there is. So I think dilution is happening because an opportunity exists, and obviously the cash that's invested should return more in the future. So when you raise the cash, it's typically very negative. But if you're able to do more with the cash than what it costs you, then it becomes a positive. And I'll point to the fact that the number of shares for Bitdeer increased by, let's call it, 50% between last year and today. But the hash rate for Bitdeer, the number of Bitcoin that they mine, which is their primary source of revenue, has increased, 5 or 6 fold, and they've made a lot of capital investments in AI and Bitcoin mining rigs. Uh, so I think that's the case. Hello. Perhaps I'll do a promo code for Ramadan. We'll see, inshallah. But with regards to digital asset treasury companies, look at MicroStrategy and how much it is down. I mean, that's the name of these leverage plays on cryptocurrency. I mean, cryptocurrency is in itself very volatile. Leverage play on a very volatile asset is even more leveraged. So you'll get those So it's important to understand the asset that you're investing in before you buy it. It's important for you to understand the beta of that asset, how volatile it is, and make your sizing decisions accordingly. So with that being said, I hope you found this live informative, and inshallah you make the most of your Ramadan. And we've been in tough positions before, and Bitdeer has certainly been in tough positions before, but has managed to bounce back, and inshallah it will do the same this time around, even if there is volatility between now and then. So I wouldn't be concerned. Inshallah, things will work out. And if you feel like this is, causing too much stress for you, then I think that, well, I would use this as a learning opportunity to find out about yourself, how risk tolerant you actually are when these types of drawdowns happen. How do you deal with them? And if you don't deal with them well, then avoid these higher beta positions. If you feel like it's negatively impacting your standard of life, then you need to avoid these high beta positions. On the other hand, if you're fine and it's completely normal for you and you understand the risks, then this is something that um, you can continue to indulge in. But um, what's important here is that you learn about yourself from this experience and you size your positions accordingly. So if this volatility is, as I mentioned, causing you not to enjoy the investing experience, then maybe you should resize your positions so that um, they are less volatile on average than what you have them at right now. So hopefully that was useful. If you enjoyed this live, leave a like. Until next time, make sure to take care of yourself. Assalamu alaikum and peace be upon you all.